Hey y'all, hope you're doing good today. I thought I would share this beautiful scenery with you, and hopefully you can hear the waves and enjoy the peaceful sounds of nature, and also hear my voice. So let's dive into a topic that hopefully will be inspiring for you. So this is something that you can, if you have interest, you can actually look into and research further. But I'm doing kind of a generalization. I've touched on it a little bit just by mentioning it in past videos. And so today I wanted to just give it a little bit more time and honor the inspiration that it really has to offer us. And that is the concept of what they call yoga off the mat. Okay, and this is not something that's contingent on you actually doing yoga or being interested in that, okay? Because what we're looking at is the purpose of it, the message, the meaning, the lessons, the transformative power of it's really a mindset, okay? And so you can apply this mindset to I feel like any physical activity, okay? Again, we're just doing a generalization, because the point here is that you're engaging in something physically. So it may be jogging or even just working out, any kind of physical activity where it requires a lot of attention to detail with what you're doing with your body. Okay, so it's great because, first of all, it brings you to the now, to the moment, which is great, because if you've got, a lot of stuff going on in your mind, if you ever catch yourself ruminating or, just basically spinning your wheels in your mind on things that are not really worthy of you thinking of or thinking about, then this is a great way to snap yourself out of that and to kind of reset your mind, okay, and to take control. Because again, with regard to leaving a toxic relationship or a psychologically abusive, narcissistically abusive relationship or environment situation, the power dynamic that you have endured while in that toxic situation is one where you felt like the other person, the controller, the manipulator, the con, whoever it was, they were the ones who had to always have the power, right? And they always had to keep you like subdued, right? So this is just a way to, with mindfulness and with intention, to shift that, right? So that we're bringing mindfulness and intention more into our life as part of our daily life, where we're consciously connected with the power that we have inside of us, right? When we're aware, when we're engaged in being conscious. Every moment that we have the power to choose. We can choose to exit a bad situation, or we can choose to engage, which I don't recommend, but and that's free will, right? So let's go ahead and dive into this a little bit. So in yoga, basically, a yoga teacher, what they do is they create a sequence, okay, or they call it, the process of it, sequencing, and it just means taking a variety of poses, and they're actually strung together with intention, like it is a mindful practice, just creating a yoga sequence, because one pose is going to lead into another if they're paired up, like back to back properly. And so it's beneficial. A lot of sequencing includes poses that move your body one way, and then before the flow is over, that's what they call the entire set of sequences, right? Like the entire session, they call it a flow. And there may be other terms too, right? This is still new to me. But a lot of times if you, within one flow, the movement is all one way, well, then the teacher creates balance by also incorporating poses that bring the body in the exact opposite direction, so that your body literally feels in balance throughout the process, and especially at the end. So balance is really, really important, and mindfulness is really important, creating that sequencing, right? And so if you actually think about the symbolism of what you're doing with your body throughout a yoga flow, essentially you're physically embodying the concept of cycles, okay? Because it's like a constantly moving cycle, right? It's just you may pause and breathe deeply, here and there, but in the end, it's like a cycle, and the way you feel afterward is incredible. And what's really interesting to me is, and again, you can look into this just as a point of inspiration if you have interest, but in the past, all throughout history, thousands of years, different cultures, it's really interesting to me to see how different cultures or societies would honor cycles just within the human experience, like emotional cycles, the flow of emotions, and with regards to their beliefs. I believe that there were even some that would create like an altar to a particular god that was associated with an emotion, to honor that emotion. Whereas in our modern society, a lot of times we're encouraged to stuff our emotions down and just get over it and deal with it, and not take the time to honor and feel those emotions, when really it's just part of our humanness. It's just part of being human. And so just the concept of living in a state of flow and allowing the cycles of everything, just like in the book we went through, Women Who Run with the Wolves, the life, death, life cycle, allowing that to occur in our life over and over and over again. Like, maybe you've really invested a lot in a particular career, but there comes a point where it's no longer fruitful and good for you, for your family situation, and you have to let that go. You have to let that dream you had of this particular career, die, because it's already served you, and it's no longer fruitful. So you have to, that's where we do have that power of choice. We can succumb to this mindset of victimhood and attach ourselves to the situation and start getting upset about it, which is really what they call resistance, right? Like if this job is no longer right for you, but you're resisting letting it go, well, you're creating suffering for yourself, right? Because life is painful. Of course, we're going to face hardships and pain and trying times, but suffering is something that we can, in particular circumstances, I feel like, choose to engage in and keep it alive, or to detach from. It doesn't mean to not feel your feelings. It just means not to stay attached and perpetuate it and keep it going in your mind where it's ruminating, and you've turned a situation that isn't ideal, or maybe it was painful, but we can turn a situation like that into a bigger deal than what it really is. And that's what I mean when I say creating suffering. So in that regard, suffering, you may say, is optional. So it's interesting when you start down a concept, thinking about a concept like this, and then you see, I've mentioned, if you are into journaling before, how you can start with this main concept in the middle, and then you can branch off with related concepts, and you just wind up creating this web of connecting dots, really, is what you're doing. And it's just, the more you think on it and the more dots you connect, like little by little, it's incredible. What it does is it forces you to step back. It's like an actual physical activity. Even that journaling process I was talking about, where you're drawing these connections, you're engaging in the process of zooming out, which I've talked about before, right? Where you can see the bigger picture, and that's great. That can actually wind up being a blessing in disguise, where suddenly you see the reason that things happen the way they did. Or the way you see the reason for things needing to happen a certain way or whatnot. You see what I'm saying? So it does kind of tie back into the concept of faith. But my point here is that a lot of times when you have gone through psychological abuse, a big part of that psychological abuse was where you were made to believe that you were powerless. You were fooled into that lie because you're not powerless. And the way a person does that is it's almost like a magic trick. They call it like a sleight of hands, right? And it's deceptive. And it's kind of like, instead of, they don't want you to see the big picture. They don't want you to see that there are other options to your life besides this mental prison that they're trying to keep you entangled in, right? This web, this mind fog, whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of like, that's why I feel like they create situations that force you to zoom in on that situation, so that you are zoomed in, you're not zoomed out, you don't see the bigger picture. And then in that regard, they have you trapped, right? They have you under control. They're manipulating you through those tactics. So like, for example, random emergencies that they create, just chaos, to get you to drop everything and for nothing. And this is something that I have actually experienced, where many times actually, where eventually you start realizing that you just spun your wheels at the hectic request of someone, and you realize in the end it was for nothing. And so eventually they can't keep this up forever. You know what I mean? It's like, I truly believe these people know that there's going to come a point where you wake up, and what they do is excuse me, they just try to get as much as they can out of you before you wake up. Sometimes they try to do you in, and there's you never know the level of somebody's psychopathy, what they're willing to do. Like, I'm thinking specifically of like life insurance policies and things like that. A lot of people look at you and they see dollar signs. That's it. And so it may just be a situation where they're like, maybe I can get a payout before you wake up. You know what I mean? So this is important stuff. It's not just philosophical like babble. Sometimes it feels that way, but when you really take the time to sit with it, it's sort of it is a challenge, but you start to collect these beautiful treasures that arise, these aha moments where you're like, okay, this makes sense. And I can see, I once was blind, but now I see what's going on. Okay? And the other piece of this too is this. All right? So we have been conditioned, when you have been psychologically abused. This is the realization I had to come to. We have been conditioned to get stuck, right? Like latching onto that point, to the point that the manipulator is putting in front of you to focus on. And so when we latch onto that, it actually it conditions us to have a particular way of operating in life, even after we've left a bad situation, where we can still do that. We can still latch onto a moment in time that's bad. And that's where you get stuck in like this mind funk. And it's like, you can't see beyond it. You don't have peace at that point. So it's conditioning too that happens to us from living this way for so long. We have been conditioned to zoom in on the bad sometimes, right? And so you have to recognize that in the moment, I feel like. And when you do, then you can utilize that power you have inside, the power of choice, and you can consciously detach. And what happens is, not only is it going to bring you peace, and I'm speaking from experience, right? And it's not like it's easy. It's something that I have to, be mindful of every day. But I can look back and see my progression and my growth. And that's why I just hope to offer you some encouragement and some inspiration, because once you're able to detach from a bad moment, it's like this immediate relief, and it's like this flood of peace. And when you are in a place of peace inside of you, that's where creativity happens, and that's where it gets really fun. Just your day-to-day mundane life can become really, really enjoyable and fun, which is, we want a lot more moments of that, right? So it almost, at times, there's so many synchronicities that it almost feels like miracle-like, this new way of living in this mindset. So it just basically means you're living in the flow. You're not getting caught up, just in your own mind because of your conditioning, where you're judging a particular situation to death and rumination, or you're self-convicting, like, I should have done this, or I wish I would have done that, or you just get stuck on that point. So the opposite of that is to live in flow, right? To allow the cycles of life and understand this too shall pass, right? That's what it's all about. And so, after having experienced what it means to live stuck or frozen for so long in this mental construct of like a dreamlike prison state, then it's like just expect. I would encourage you to expect that it will take effort. It's like turning a ship around. It's not the same as like a race car, or just any kind of car. It's going to take longer to turn a ship around. So I just encourage you to think of the mountain that you really are moving, and that it's worthy. It's worthy of your efforts. And I just encourage you not to give up. Because life can be beautiful. It's not always going to be easy, and every little moment's not always going to be beautiful, right? But zooming out, when you can see the whole picture, it's like, what a ride. You know what I mean? And I just encourage you to find your people too, who are also working on themselves and growing and wanting to become better and for themselves and for others, and who are authentic and true people who love and honor truth and despise deceit, because that is what creates that web, right? And so it's not a competition. It's not like you got to hurry up and shift gears fast. So again, just think of that metaphor of turning the ship around or moving the mountain, because that's really what it's about. But it is definitely a worthy endeavor, right? So I just encourage you to take any of these concepts that I've mentioned today and run with it and do your own research and look into any of this further. And I just thank you so much for coming along with me today. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good day. And I will see you again very soon.